In AD 790, after growing discontent, the Thematic armies of Anatolia rebelled and sidelined the Regency of Irene of Athens. Her son Constantine VI was now free to rule alone. If the army expected another strong Isaurian warrior emperor, they were sorely mistaken. Constantine led an expedition against the Bulgar Khan Kardam at the fortress of Probaton, only to retreat ingloriously after a minor engagement. In the east, he sought to redeem himself by striking at Tarsus in Cilicia. But the campaign ended in failure again, while an Arab raid pushed as deep as Caesarea. Back in Thrace, at Markeli, where Constantine V had once won a great victory, Constantine VI caused an uncalled military disaster. His arrogance and negligence left the army unprepared, and Kardam scattered the Romans, cutting down many of their finest generals. The greatest loss was Michael Lacanodrakon, the most capable commander of the Isaurian period. Constantine abandoned his men and fled back to the capital. Disgusted by this cowardice, the army received their emperor with contempt. With support at rock bottom, Constantine had little choice but to restore Irene as co-empress, if only to shore up his position. Unconvinced, the military conspired to raise his uncle, Caesar Nikephoros, to the throne. But Constantine moved swiftly, blinded Nikephoros, and mutilated his remaining uncles. Irene may well have encouraged the savagery, seeking to further erode her son's standing. Alexios Musel, strategos of the Armeniacon, was blinded alongside them, a step too far. The Armeniacon revolted, and when Constantine sent a force to suppress them, the rebels defeated the imperial army and blinded both commanders in kind. Taking personal leadership, Constantine led all the remaining themata against the Armeniacon, one of the few campaigns he actually won thanks to the betrayal of Armenian troops within the enemy ranks. The rebels were punished with extreme cruelty. Yet the Armenian traitors were angered at having received no reward, so they defected to the Caliphate instead, handing over the border fortress of Kamachon. Later, the Arabs took another fort, Thebassa in Lycaonia. As if his reputation needed further damage, Constantine divorced his wife and illegally married his mistress, making her the empress. He did manage to score some victories against external enemies at last, defeating a small Arab raiding party at Anusan and celebrating in nearby Ephesus. Kardam, emboldened by his victories, demanded tribute, but Constantine responded by sending horse manure and marching into Thrace with the Asiatic themata. The two sides met at Versinikia, where Kardam lost his nerve and withdrew. Further north, the Bulgars aided Charlemagne's son Pepin in his campaign against the Avars, who were decisively defeated. In the east, Harun al-Rashid moved his court to Ar-Raqqa to better manage campaigns near the Roman frontier. The Arabs conducted their annual raid, reaching as far as Amorion but achieving little. Harun, nonetheless, felt emboldened enough to demand tribute from Constantine in writing, a demand the emperor simply ignored. The following year, the Arabs had more luck, pushing as far as Ancyra. Constantine marched out with Staurakius and 20,000 Thematic soldiers. But the campaign was aborted on false intelligence, most likely planted by Staurakius or Irene, who had been quietly preparing her return to power. Constantine came home empty-handed. Back again in Constantinople in disgrace, Constantine's popularity collapsed and Irene finally struck. She bribed the army to her side and had her son seized and brought before her. In the Porphyra chamber where Irene gave birth to him, Constantine was brutally blinded by his own mother. The infection to his eyes meant he likely did not survive long after. Irene ascended as sole empress of the Romans. From her sole reign onward, Irene abandoned any pretense of fighting the Arabs, resorting entirely to diplomacy. When Muslim armies devastated Cappadocia and Galatia, she sent officials to sue for peace, though the attempt failed. The following year, the Arabs struck deeper still, reaching Malagina and raiding the imperial stables, seizing horses belonging to Staurakios himself. A separate Arab force crushed Paulus, strategos of the Opsikion, slaughtering much of his command and capturing their equipment. The Caliph then consented to peace, which Irene had to pay dearly for. Harun al-Rashid was, on the other hand, enjoying very cordial diplomatic relations with the other major Christian power of the age, the Franks of Charlemagne. At that time, Charlemagne was cementing his bond with the papacy. When the new Pope Leo III was attacked and mutilated by political enemies, only Charlemagne's men saved him, giving him refuge and escorting him back to Rome. Leo was eternally grateful and would soon find a way to repay the Frankish king. Back in Byzantium, Irene's brothers-in-law caused trouble one last time. Having been exiled to Athens, they were now drawn out by soldiers of the Helados Thema and a Slavic chieftain in Thessaly, Acameros, who proclaimed one of them emperor. The revolt was crushed, and those who had escaped that fate so far were all blinded. Irene's popularity continued to wane, and her attempts to win back the people through lavish handouts of wealth did little to help. When she fell sick, the rivalry between her two favored eunuchs, Staurakios and Aetius, grew so bitter it quickly spiraled out of control. Staurakios plotted to seize power by bribing the Tagmata, but Irene forbade any officials from supporting him. Though he fell ill, he remained convinced he would become emperor and continued his struggle against Aetius and the empress. Staurakios based his revolt in Cappadocia, but died within days, leaving Aetius as the emperor's chief administrator. Right after, he led the Anatolikon and Opsikion Themata on a successful expedition against the Arabs. While visiting Rome, Charlemagne was crowned Imperator Romanorum by Pope Leo III, reviving, in effect, the title of Western Roman Emperor. Leo justified the move by claiming that a woman could not be a legitimate emperor. Charlemagne, wary of straining ties with the East, was uneasy with the title and may have sought to ease tensions by proposing marriage to Irene, a union that would have reunited the two halves of the Roman Empire. Irene continued her policy of liberality to appease her subjects, remitting the taxes of the capital and cancelling the custom dues of the cities of Abydos and Hieron. She also gave serious consideration to Charlemagne's proposal, finding the terms acceptable. But the marriage was ultimately blocked by Aetius, now the second most powerful individual in the empire. Like Staurakios before him, Aetius had his own designs on the throne, but for his brother Leo, who was made strategos of Thrace and Macedonia, while Aetius retained command of the Opsikion and Anatolikon himself. These were four of the most important themata of the empire, enough to surround Constantinople at a moment's notice. But Aetius never got the chance. Fearing his revolt, a faction of the palace officials opposed to Irene, particularly over the Charlemagne debate, struck first. Led by the finance minister Nikephoros, they seized power and sent Irene into exile on Lesbos. Thus ended the 85-year hold of the Isaurians over the Eastern Roman Empire. The struggle between an incapable son and an ambitious mother broke the spine of the dynasty, opening the way for competing factions to contest and eventually take power. At the dawn of the 9th century, the empire had properly entered the Middle Ages as a truly unique entity, with its own distinguishable features, from the themata and tagmata of its military to the firmly established traditions of its church.